That Assam, after Kashmir, has the second largest percentage of Muslims in India. That there are Waqf properties from 1999 to 2010. A survey was done, and in that survey it showed that there was over 14,900 some Waqf properties in Assam. Now, in the latest version, we see that there is only 2,000 plus Waqf properties left in Assam. So then what has happened to these 12,000 plus properties? That became my question when I started reading. Properties cannot disappear. They're not movable things. They're land, they're estates, they're houses, they are mosques, madrasas, khamkas, and orphanages, yatim khanas, all of that. They can't disappear. So where did they disappear? As Pasha had told us, that it is not simply the disappearance that they are not Waqf. They are Waqf, but because the mutawalis had on many occasions perhaps, had not registered, they are now taken off from Waqf. NRC and CAA in the context of Waqf. The problem is documentation, right? Assam is in the grip of a documentation anxiety. If I do not have my right papers, I can be declared a foreigner and be told that I am a Waqf property. A lot of pollution inside, between the Waqf Board, the mutawalis, the government, to so to say, is that there's a systematic corruption going on. And the systematic corruption is not being addressed because people in Assam are not very legalistic. They don't like to go to the court or to the police. Afternoon or evening, for the audience particularly, thank you Rashid Bhai and Nizamuddin, the university, the Islamic American College and Alia University in Calcutta for enabling all of us to come together to discuss this very contentious and, as you can see, extremely legalistic issue. I am not by any stretch of imagination a scholar of legal history of South Asia. I study issues of memory, history, how history gets written, a history of ideas, how we think of ourselves as basically as human beings, particularly human beings in South Asia and the Muslim human in South Asia. As you can all understand, Waqf is also one of the areas that has brought to question how we think of the Muslim person or the Muslim community in India. And lately, this community has been almost turned into what I call a mujrim community, a criminal community that has to be somehow tamed and corrected and regulated and disciplined in order to be good citizens of India. So I don't do the legal part of it. I study the other aspects of this issue of disciplining Muslims to feel or to actually no longer feel like a Muslim, but become something different called a new Indian who cannot remember the past that was connected to their ancestors, their families, and the place. So I'm getting into an area of work that I do not do personally, but for this conference, I decided to study it and learn something about it. And hopefully in the process of this learning and sharing with you, I will be able to clear some of the issues that, like you, I'm grappling with it. So I prepared a PowerPoint in order to actually share what I'm working on, hopefully towards a publication when Nizamuddin will ask us to put it together. I work on different aspects of the subcontinent, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, but being originally from Assam, I keep going back to Assam to look at what is happening. Several of you probably already know that Assam, after Kashmir, has the second largest percentage of Muslims in India. Yesterday we had this discussion of what is the number. One of my juniors from Aligarh, who is also from Assam, said 28 to 29%. When I was writing and looking into Assam's history, I have found over and over again a census of 2011 that says it's 34%. And then in the rhetoric that I am following right now in writing a new book on minorities in South Asia, the rhetoric is that there's 40% Muslims in Assam, which in other words is population jihad. So that is being used in a way to create a picture of fear that Assam will somehow be taken up by the Muslims. Percentage-wise, a very large percent, but when you look at it economically, Assam's Muslim is one of the poorest in the country. According to the Sacher Commission of 2006, 39% of the Assamese, the Muslims of Assam, are below the poverty line. So here you have an incredibly poor Muslim community, but a very large Muslim community. But at the same time, while you have this poverty, keep that in mind. I'm talking financial poverty. I'm not talking of, kind of emotional, cultural, and spiritual poverty. That's very rich when it comes to the Muslims of Assam. But there are Waqf properties from 1999 to 2010. A survey was done, and in that survey, it showed that there was over 14,900 some Waqf properties in Assam. Now, in the latest version, we see that there is only 2,000 plus Waqf properties left in Assam. So then what has happened to these 12,000 plus properties? That became my question when I started reading. Properties cannot disappear. They're not movable things. They're land, they're estates, they're houses, they are mosques, madrasas, khamkas, and orphanages, yatim khanas, all of that. They can't disappear. So where did they disappear? As Pasha had told us, that it is not simply the disappearance that they are not Waqf. They are Waqf, but because the mutawallis had on many occasions perhaps had not registered, they are now taken off from Waqf. So this is a question worth remembering. How is a disappearance being created? Not just a disappearance of, as I said, the Muslimness of India, but also the absolute physical presence of Muslim Waqf in India is made to disappear by the manipulation of numbers. So that is in the background. You keep this mind of this very poor Muslim community. That means has been endowing as a kind of expression of their dedication and their connection to the religion, in spite of all this other adversity. Now, Assam, as I said, has a huge Muslim population. The percentage is very high. There are some areas in this map that you can see has very dark kind of color. That has over, in that segment that you can see, is over 50 to 80% of those districts are actually Muslim dominated sometimes. The dark ones are, yes, and then the light ones as it goes becomes less and less than 20%. But nowhere, more or less, in a large district are there less than 20% Muslims in Assam. So each district has a very large Muslim population. Now, being a historian, I look at everything from the lens of history and thinking historically that when did Waqf begin in Assam? This is a very Arabic term, right? When did it start and when did it, do people really understand these as Waqf? And in doing this, I found that the first, because I study these chronicles of Assam that are written in Thai and in Assamese from the 16th to the 18th, 19th century. And I so went back to these chronicles. I had translated quite a few of these original Thai chronicles. I studied Lao and Thai to do that. And I found that in these chronicles, there is a mention, several mention of mosque and the making of mosque in Assam in the 16th and 17th century. In fact, pre-Mughal, okay? And this picture on the right-hand side that you see is from the 15th century, 1498, most likely from the Hussain Shahi period of Bengal. But there's also a little bit of controversy. Some people want to say it's a 17th century mosque. Nonetheless, it was used by the Mughals when they had invaded Assam many times. And so this is the first one. And the chronicles actually mention about them. I did a lot of oral history and I also talked to a lot of legal people because I had to understand these Waqf cases in order to make sense for myself what I'm reading. And I would like to particularly thank Advocate Ijaz Maqbool, a senior from Aligarh, and a team of people that he introduced me to, different lawyers, and a member of the Legislative Assembly of Assam, Sharman Ali, who gave me a lot of documents of the government of Assam regarding Waqf that has really helped me write this paper. But for me as a historian, I at some times could not understand the legal language. I call it legalese. It's not English, it's not Assamese, it's some other language, so I have to make a lot of sense of it. But the biggest problem I found in doing this research is the problem with the Waqf Board of Assam. The Waqf Board of Assam has stopped functioning from 2017, And even before it was functioning, it had a lot of corruption charges, a lot of mismanagement, inefficiency, basically negligence towards the community as far as maintaining Waqf. And so there is a public deficit among the Muslims in Assam towards Waqf Board. Generally, people don't even consider, don't even go to Waqf. Now, when did it first start? As I said in my historical study, I found that there was the first mosque that I showed you, the previous mosque, this is the first one, that most likely was created as a Waqf because there's land, there's a madrasa, there is, all kinds of establishment connected to this mosque. However, very interestingly, in the 17th century, when the Mughals started invading Assam, simultaneously you find that the Ahom rulers of Assam were endowing plots of land and areas to Muslims to construct their mosques and dargah. So while there is a conflict between the Mughals and the Assam court, there is endowment made to the Muslims, which is very different from today, when there is no conflict going on within India, yet the Muslims are made to pay the price that their religion does not have a place. Whereas in the past, when Muslims were so small in Assam, the kings were making endowments to Muslim establishment, and this particular dargah that you see in Guwahati today that exists comes from the late 17th, early 18th century. Likewise, the Mughals were giving land to the construction, particularly Aurangzeb gave land, I'll show it to you one last thing, land in an island in the Brahmaputra for the construction of a very famous temple that continues even today. But with the coming of the British and British colonialism that entered into India very early, it came to Assam rather late, in 1826 when they made a treaty, they started changing a lot of the rules and regulations, and likewise changing the demographic composition of Assam, which today has led to this big problem of the National Register of Citizens and the Citizenship Amendment Act of 2019. The British encouraged people from East Bengal those days, British India, to migrate to Assam for rice cultivation mostly in order to feed the laborers of the tea plantation and the new oil fields. And today, 100 years later, those people are said that you are Bangladeshis and you don't belong here and you're infiltrators and we are removing you from the citizenship. So doubtful voters, detention, all of that is going on. Now, why am I talking about NRC and CAA in the context of Waqf? The problem is documentation, right? Assam is in the grip of a documentation anxiety. If I do not have my right papers, I can be declared a foreigner and be told that I am a Bangladeshi. Likewise with Waqf, because as I showed you, the decline from 14,000 to 2,000 means that you do not have the documentation, we will take it back from you, we will make it whatever we want to make it, and you will not have your establishments and institutions, like as I said, your orphanages and your madrasas and your mosques. Particularly if you make any donations to madrasas, you are being brought under the scrutiny of the tax office, like my family has been done. So this is a big problem of documentation. We live in a kind of documentation anxiety in Assam. So NRC, Waqf, CAA are all interconnected. I want to also very quickly, because I don't have so much time about it, I want to go to one of the first Waqfs that were created by a local Muslim person during the time of British colonialism in 1890. This is known as the Uhidur Rahman Waqf. It is on a large plot of land of 14 bighas in the center of Guwahati city, the most important commercial center. And is, as you can see in the background, all the buildings, it is being now let out to big showrooms and buildings. But from 1958, it has been a contentious property. His son, who is to maintain it, it is not Waqf al-Awlad, it was Fi Sabilillah, but the son decided that it was an Awlad Waqf, and he is going to maintain it, and he has taken it to court. And this court case has been going on from 1958 to 2024 with various judgments going back and forth, saying it is a Waqf, somebody saying it's not a Waqf, and then finally now it's in limbo because the Waqf board doesn't function. 2017, the Waqf Board of Assam was dissolved, so it doesn't function. So now this property is in the limbo. and they barely collect any rent from this property for the whole year. And 14 bighas of land, including cinema houses and banks and showrooms, they get only 1,26,000 rupees, right? So there's a lot of mismanagement going on between the family and also the tenants. There are many other cases like this ongoing. I have piles and piles of documents now of cases to read as my lawyer friends are sending it to me. Some of the areas in Assam that had very big waqf, one is the area of Silchar, which is around here, very close to Bangladesh. And I'll talk about only one of them, which has a 4,000 bighas of land, the Borloskor property. 500 bighas are in the commercial area of the main town of Silchar. This entire land, the siblings started arguing, and they have been selling it off to brothers who are the Mutawalis, selling it off to different groups, including to Hindu temples and cinemas and houses and apartment buildings. And there is a very big tea estate of 3,500 bighas of land that is totally dysfunctional. Assam, that is so famous for tea cultivation, this is completely dysfunctional, almost on a point of auction. So this waqf has been lost. It was not waqf al-Aulad, it was fi sabilillah too, and it has been taken over by the Mutawalis. So when you take this comparison between Silchar and Guwahati, two very commercially viable areas, you find that the Mutawalis are selling off land, selling off waqf properties with a full knowledge of the Waqf Board, the non-functioning Waqf Board. Even when it was functioning, it allowed. This hospital that you can see called Namcare Hospital was on from the Anwaruddin estate. That was sold up for 14 crore rupees only a few years ago. And behind it is a medical college that was also grabbed land with the full knowledge of Waqf Board. And they're saying we are doing public work, so nobody can take it back from them, it appears. So with false, with different kinds of collusions and privatization, there's a big loss of Waqf properties in Assam, in the main areas, as I'm saying, with very large dominant Muslim communities and rich Muslim communities in Guwahati and Silchar town. Now, Pasha also talked about, and also earlier Shamshad Bhai talked about, who can create waqf. This is a big issue now in the Northeast, in Assam. This particular case will be of very big importance in the Northeast, because we have the largest tribal area in Assam, known as the Bodoland tribal area. This area, which is connected to Bengal and to the Assam Valley on the other eastern side. We have around 200,000 tribal Muslims there, with around 500 undocumented waqf property that were never really registered. But if you want to keep the constitutional right as a tribal, you have to give up your identity as a Muslim. If you want to be a Muslim, you have to give up the privileges as a tribal. This area is also an area that's heavily populated by what is known today derogatorily as Mia or Bangladeshi community. So you have the tribal Muslim, you have Bangladeshi, so-called Bangladeshi Muslim, and you have the tribal population now against one another in order to survive in this document precarity regime. There has been some protests against it, but it has not really worked. So basically the pattern that I see as a historian of what is happening in Assam with a large Muslim population, poor people, lots of waqf properties, disappearance of waqf properties, lot of pollution inside between the Waqf Board, the Mutawalis, the government, to so to say, is that there's a systematic corruption going on. And the systematic corruption is not being addressed because people in Assam are not very legalistic. They don't like to go to the court or to the police station. They consider it below their dignity to go to a court, to go to the court. So that in order to avoid courts, they don't end up documenting, they don't end up asking questions of their own institutions, and in the end they are the ones who are facing the problem of not having the financial security that they once had. On top of that, we have a government that is run by the Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP in Assam, extremely hostile to Muslims. As you already know, most of the problems emerging in India, the laboratory is Assam, whether it's NRC, whether it's CAA, Love Jihad, this population jihad, all kinds of jihad are coming out of there, besides UP. And so you have a hostile government that does not really want to help the people. The people do not have anywhere else to go. So what are they doing? Their survival strategy is just forget about it. Okay? Forget about all these problems. Let me take care of myself and do not ask too many questions. Because if you ask too many questions, there are all these goons and henchmen who will come and actually threaten you at home and if necessary kill you, which has happened. Right? So people stay away from all of these problems so-called, but in the process, all they can feel is a sense of deep isolation, a sense of despair, uncertainty, fear, and of course psychological problems are increasing in Assam, not simply because of Waqf. Remember NRC, remember CAA. All of these are interconnected. The response is, rather than come out and question both their Muslim leaders and the government as an institution, Muslims are retracting and are either migrating, selling off whatever they have in order to, but according to the new law, Muslims cannot sell to Hindus and Hindus cannot sell to Muslims anymore. So that's also being confined. And they're not reclaiming their own land, nor are asking for accountability. So in this particular case, I, as a historian, have to now think, how do you write a history of a disaster that is in the making? It's a history of disaster, not just of financial loss, but of the very sense of loss that you belong somewhere, and these institutions that have given you a sense of both belonging and claim to a place that your ancestors had made under deep kind of financial insecurity sometimes are to be given away or lost. So that disassociation and the beginning of a disaster is not a very hopeful story for history, but nonetheless, it is a place of beginning an awareness that may create a change or may not create a change, but as a historian, my approach is just to record what is going on. Thank you very much.